Today, we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Alyssa Wright, principal and founder of Wright Collective. You are in for a wealth of knowledge. Alyssa holds so much information, and I am really excited for you all to hear from Alyssa. So grab your coffee, grab your water, grab your lunch, buckle in for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And with that, Alyssa, I will go ahead and pass it to you to get us kicked off.
Aw, thank you, Ashley. So great to be with you all today. It's always fun to see the chat and see all of the sort of locations and organizations and folks that are tuning in. So thank you for having me. It was pretty fun. I think I saw some folks from New Hampshire, Maine, New England. I'm nestled here today on beautiful Wabanaki lands in southern Maine where I live, and just super grateful to Bonterra for hosting what I feel like is a really important conversation. Also, a big thank you to those of you who registered earlier in the year and then came back here today. I appreciate that. I had some very sick small children in my house, and so we got through some sickness as a family, and now I get to show up and arrive healthy and well and motivated. I'm 3 cups of coffee in already here at 1 o'clock Eastern to share this with you all. So I will get it started with sharing my screen and introducing you to today's topic. Um, Before I begin, just a quick little bit about myself. For those of you who haven't attended a webinar with me yet, my name is Alyssa Wright. I have the great gift and honor of being the steward of Wright Collective. We are a community of consultants who are committed to driving social change and ensuring that the movements of our times are well resourced. I come from a background myself where I grew up in rural Massachusetts, and I had to figure out who I was going to be around the causes that I cared about, and also how I was going to build relationships across class, race, gender to kind of unite everyone around driving change and putting money where it should go for the betterment of all of us. So I honor today as we kind of dive into this conversation that um, I know that a lot of what we talk about in donor stewardship is about building relationships, which is incredibly important. Um, but a lot of it also too is building relationships across many different facets and figuring out how we all can kind of work together to drive change in our communities and to support those that we care about. So as we dive into today's conversation about donor stewardship for this year, I think Ashley knows this from one of our prep conversations for today. I have a deep belief in, and Right Collective functions in a space of abundance always. There's always what we need out there. It's really important for us to carry an abundance mindset in our sector, even when it's difficult. And perhaps right now in 2026, in the sort of socioeconomic political landscape that we're in, it's incredibly difficult to focus on abundance. So I want to honor that, but I also want to honor that philanthropy, as we talk about today, is a $1 billion ecosystem. Money is moving all the time in so many different ways. And so for us as nonprofit organizations, it's important that we understand the way in which money moves. We are financially savvy to understand the vehicles with which folks move those dollars through, and that we believe that we are enough, our causes are worthy enough, and that we are unapologetic and fierce on behalf of the communities that we serve to ask for what we need and to receive it. So I welcome that it is a framework today because it's important for us to believe in abundance, to believe in sufficiency, and to know that there is enough and we are enough as we start mapping towards a future for our organizations. So I thought what I could share today, because I think that it's really important before we talk about, I made a little roadmap for you all today to talk about stewardship. So I'm excited to share that with you. As someone who, yes, I'm a consultant, but also I manage a lot of capital campaigns and I work on a lot of different strategic planning, funding planning scopes of work. I'm in the day to day with you. You know, I've got a $1 million benchmark to hit for a campaign by the end of March, and I've got a $3 million benchmark to hit for another campaign by the end of June. I am literally in the day to day work still, as many of you are, striving to hit those financial goals. Um, so, what I named today as we sort of get started is it's important for us to understand the landscape we're in. First and foremost, I will just say take it a day at a time. I hope you are all drinking a lot of tea and building in your little 30-minute afternoon power naps because it is tough out there for fundraisers. um, I got an email a couple of days ago from a grant maker who said that they were going to open up their next cycle of grant making April 1st. And we were all excited because they cover a core part of one of our programs every year for a client. And then I got an email about like a few moments later that said, oh, sorry, actually, we've reevaluated internally and it's going to be June 1st now. And I was like, oh, okay, great, no problem. We'll just wait 2 more months to apply for core funding that we need for our work. So I just name it because it's a volatile landscape. Philanthropies are shifting their priorities, they're doing strategic planning. And as you can see in some of the trends here, we still see a decline in household giving. So it's really tough. The middle class and working class are hurting in America. For those of you that are fundraising mostly from the United States right now. So it's a really difficult time. When I first started in the field, I remember that, most grant applications were not unsolicited. They were, there was an open invitation and a person to contact. Now many of them are closed and you have to know someone there that they don't accept unsolicited proposals. And with individuals, I remember when I first started, you could do a gala and you could sell 100 tickets at $100. And now we really struggle to get people to buy $100 or $250 tickets to events. So we're in a very different landscape, and I want to honor that. I want to lean into a couple of things here we'll talk about today around donor stewardship in particular. The first is AI adoption. So, first and foremost, if your organization has not made a policy around AI and how you're going to use it, please bring that to the next staff meeting or the boardroom. It is showing up in, obviously, as the Bonterra team knows well, in so many places and spaces with technologies. And so many folks are utilizing it and utilizing different types of AI in different ways. We'll talk a little bit today about sort of how we're going to think about that with donor stewardship, but it's really important because it is everywhere. It is an incredibly effective tool, but it's also important that you have a policy around it and you sort of have some boundary setting because this work is highly relational, right? And we want to take into account the human experience and be really thoughtful and smart about how we utilize AI when we're building relationships. And we're talking about things about wealth and power and money and impact in our world. The other trend we're continuing to see that I will lean into today is because we are living in a time of vast income inequality. I spend most of my days negotiating $1 million gifts and helping organizations sell $25 tickets to events. The whole middle tier is missing a little bit. So there's fewer donors and larger gifts. So again, I'll talk a little bit today about how maybe you can use a stewardship strategy to find that surprise donor who again might come in with a $25 or $50 gift, and a year later you identify as someone who could give $50,000 or $75,000 to your work. The other thing that I want to name here today that is pretty pertinent to our conversation is the generational wealth transfer is in process. I feel like this benchmark changes every time I look at it. I'm like, is Wall Street that unreliable? I literally log it all the time. Like, hey guys, could you actually know, like, is it a $32 trillion wealth transfer or a $42 trillion wealth transfer? Let's just say there's a huge wealth transfer that's underway, mostly from the boomer generation to Gen X and millennials. And part of that wealth transfer, and what is part of that wealth transfer, is opportunity for your nonprofits. So being really mindful about stewardship is going to help you in this moment where, again, just anecdotally, we had a client launching a housing campaign a couple of months ago. A member of their board unfortunately had a relative pass away, but that person decided to, that person's father so generously and graciously decided to designate their entire life insurance policy to the organization their son was serving on the board of. So again, that's where an organization who has had a pretty modest budget all of a sudden saw almost $1 million in revenue come in for their organization. So again, this generational wealth transfer moment that we are in is so critical for you to be aware of and to be financially fluent around so you can negotiate these conversations when you start doing stewardship really well, which I hope you start to do after today a little bit more effectively and inspired. To really drive and find yourself in those gaps where you might be surprised by a 5 or 6 figure investment. And then the last thing that I will just share here also too is nationally, so many communities are preparing for the cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. and what could be happening in the social service safety net that so many of maybe your families, people that you love, people in your community rely on for stability. So I name that today because what I am seeing is that a lot of donors who, maybe we're funding a scholarship program or maybe funding an arts organization are really struggling right now because they feel like they're sort of peeling back to people need food and housing and very basic things, healthcare, very basic things right now to survive. So I just name that because I think it's important for you to know if you are a social service organization, how you're messaging right now, what your conversations around stewardship will be as these new policies affect your sector in particular. But I also think it's really important for you if you are an organization that doesn't focus on a particular element of the social service safety net, how you fit into it or how you can partner more effectively to serve in these times. Because again, you might find yourself after today, which I also hope you do, doing some more collaborative fundraising together with other organizations in your community to have more impact and to really go after those fewer donors that are giving larger gifts. So, with that, I'm going to go back to this quote that I really, really like. And in full disclosure, and Ashley, I hope I'm not in trouble. I've put this same quote in like 5 different webinars for the last couple weeks. I'm like obsessed with this quote. Um, but I just feel like for me, I remember during the pandemic year in 2020 when everything, shut down early in the year and I was sitting in my office. I had my 3-year-old home and we didn't know where the world was headed. I just remember really rooting myself in the present moment. And I've tried to keep that with me. 24 hours to 24 hours, task to task, week to week, sort of breathing into every email I send, breathing into every phone conversation or cup of coffee that I have. Success for you with donor stewardship, particularly in a very noisy, chaotic, busy time where there's a lot of miscommunication out in the world and general chaos when you pick up your phone, when you pick up your child at the high school or you go to the town meeting. There's a lot that's happening in the world right now. And so it's really important for you to stick as best you can to a very intentional project plan, particularly around donor stewardship. Because what I have found now, almost 20 years into this field, is that with that process and paying real close attention and sort of sticking to that with consistency, that is where you will yield success and where you will retain relationships. So just remember that I'm going to talk today about some very subtle, small things in donor stewardship, but they're the things this year that I'm realizing in this landscape are so important for me to pay attention to. Everyone always said that I had a lot of like very soft, creative, relational little skill things that I would do. And I was like, oh, yeah, like those are the things that make me take a $10,000 donor to $1 million donor and a $10 monthly donor to a $250 monthly donor. So don't discredit any of the sort of creative, thoughtful, for lack of a better word, maybe like spiritual sort of ways that you are showing up in this work to hold people through these times and to tell them about your organization's impact. So let me share this with you all on the call today who might not be super familiar with the development pipeline. So, similar to a sales pipeline in development, we also have a pipeline that we build our programs around, that we shape our conversations around. So, I'll share this with you kind of at a little bit of a high level today, and then I'll break it down a little bit more around stewardship. So let's say you have no donors. You just got your 501c3 status and you are skipping with your paperwork up the street and excited to start fundraising for your newly formed nonprofit. The first thing that you want to do is you want to prospect for new donors, right? So you need to find people who, and the way I might verbalize this, because again, I feel like it's so important to be able to hear what this sounds like, is that I might say, hey, I see that you and I like really both care about the youth mental health crisis right now. Like, based on what we just talked about, like there's so much going on. I'm on the board of this organization that's doing this great work around it. We should definitely connect and you should come to their next event with me. It's a generative way where you just identify like, wow, we both are really concerned right now about, the lack of funding for entrepreneurship in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Seems like we both like are really concerned about that in the greater Boston area. We should touch base sometime because I know a couple organizations doing great work around it. It's the way in which you identify we share values, we share a common cause, concern, and you say, let's keep talking. then you cultivate that relationship, right? So the mistake people make here is they don't do a great job at cultivation. They just jump right into engagement. So they might just say like, hey, you should join our board or buy a ticket to our gala. That's a little fast. That's like, hey, we went on our first date and now we're picking out our china and I'm moving with you to a different state. Like we don't go that quickly, right? In relationships, at least I hope we don't. We want to have intention and move very slowly and build a healthy rapport. It's also a great opportunity for you to start to build community for them. So they see the organization as more than just Alyssa telling Ashley, like, we both care about this, we should do this together. I'm then going to introduce Ashley to someone else in the organization and say, hey, based on what you shared about entrepreneurship, you should know the person who runs our loan fund. She's wicked awesome. And her office is right downtown next to the best smoothie spot in town. You two should grab a smoothie sometime and chat. You're bringing them closer to someone or something in the organization to further their knowledge. People who are good at cultivation see it as an education point. So I often also too, I'm working with a national organization that's doing work on ending workplace silence mechanisms. Some of my cultivation is sharing other events happening in our ecosystem to say, hey, I'm going to be attending this to learn about this thing that our organization also benefits from. And you should come and hear the research too. And maybe we can talk about it after over coffee. So again, you're bringing them closer to the work, you're educating, inspiring, informing. Then you can get them more involved. If after that you feel like that relationship is going from lukewarm to hot, awesome. So the next step that happens is you engage them. That's where they might come to an event, they might join a committee, they might say, I really want to get more involved here. What are the opportunities? And a caveat to this as well is if you want to do good stewardship well, as we talk more about that today, you're going to want to make sure that you're also in a position to have good volunteer opportunities. So if you don't have a list of like 10 ways that people can volunteer right now, and sort of working across again like accessibility and inclusive ways for people to volunteer, things people can do with their hands, things people can do for you digitally, really make that list because I think it's important to have it before you start doing effective fundraising. It kind of goes back to that ask for advice or volunteerism and you end up with a check. You got to have that sort of list so that people can get their time and talent in before you get their treasure. So then you get them involved, then you solicit them. It gets to a place where they're really involved in stuff and you say, it's been so great to have you learning more about this work. And, I'd love to invite you to make a gift since we have the spring campaign coming up. Can I sign you on to be a $50 monthly donor? That'd be awesome. That's what my husband and I do, or my partner and I do, right? So, so that's another great opportunity is that you then solicit. And then here's where organizations fall off, which is why Ashley and the Bonterra team very smartly chose this probably for a topic this year. Everyone sends the thank you card, the thank you video. You put that sticker in it that we all love to put on our Nalgene bottles. And then you just drop it and you forget about them until you're going to go back and engage and solicit them. And you're basically probably most times going to either see them on a committee or a task force or a board in a boardroom, or you're going to see them at an event. You're going to forget the real granular and thoughtful ways in which you can do stewardship that actually get gifts upgraded. You can do this in aggregate ways, which we'll talk about a little bit today because I want to honor that. And don't laugh, but you might want to throw into the chat if you're a one person development shop, as I was for many years, you probably don't have the bandwidth to send out 500 personal emails or 500 cups of coffee. So there will to certain folks, but there will definitely be ways in which you can do more of that personal those personal touch points. And then the last part of that is when you do stewardship well and you show them all the ways that they're helping you make a difference, that they're an investor in this with you, that they're creating real outcomes and impact and keeping the heartbeat of the organization going. Then you circle back next year and you get to take that $250 donor to 1,000, and it's clear to them why you need 1,000, and they also feel like they're in a good, strong, trusted, well communicated relationship with you. So I share that today for those of you who have not seen this development pipeline because I feel like this is a really helpful tool. And I have seen this many times articulated in a way that's kind of tactical. I wanted you today to get a picture of it, of what it sounds like. I'm a great fundraiser, at least I like to think I am after 20 years because I keep doing this and people like working with me. But I like to think that I'm a great fundraiser because I'm a great conversationalist. Like I know how to shape conversations so that people come to the conclusion or people get the information they need to then take the next step in investing in our work and being a catalyst for our organization. So let's talk about stewardship. So let's think about it as your year-end appeal just ended last year. In January, your tax letters and thank yous went out. You did some organizational planning, and now you're really thinking about, okay, what does the rest of the year look like in terms of taking care of these relationships so that everyone who gave $1,000 in December will maybe give 2,500 in the following fall, or at some point. So I'm going to name a couple buckets here. Stewardship can happen in a variety of ways. I think that particularly, again, just naming this year and the era and the times that we're in, and why I love technologies like those that are in the Bonterra family, is that you need to really have unique gratitude. One of our birth centers in Boston, actually, the a birth center, neighborhood birth center we got to work with in the greater Boston area, they used the Network for Good platform for years with the little videos, right? Really personal videos. And I would love getting something where their founder, Nishira Burrell, would literally be like, "Hey, Alyssa, I'm really crazy busy and we're about to get our permits for this, but I wanted to update you and say thank you for your gift. And, if you can be at our trivia night next week, please do come. And if not, just know that we're so grateful for you." Right. So unique gratitude that really feels like they're part of the process of making the work happen with you. I have loved getting videos or cards or personal letters where people are really reflective on those benchmarks and milestones within a program. Um, Another example of that might be one of our clients just launched a workforce development program. When the students graduate, we're going to take the time to make personal videos and have personal notes written to all of the donors that funded it around the graduation moment, instead of just standardizing it to say, oh, we do it right after they give. Well, we will send a thank you. If their check comes in February, we'll send them a thank you card, a week later. But also, don't think that you have to stop there. If there's a program benchmark that happens and folks funded that in the campaign you ran, or in the major gifts, push that you did, connect them to that later in the year and do a second or third round of gratitude so they see the impact of their gift. Um, Personal touch points. So I am still a very big fan of, I've had 3 kids in the last 7 years. And around every one of my birth experiences, I've had a lot of clients and colleagues reach out to me, and honor my birth experience, honor my postpartum phase. I've had folks just reach out and be like, "Hey, we know that you're probably not sleeping very much right now, but we wanted to, touch base with you and let you know that, because of you and your family supporting this, like these are some of the outcomes that have happened." So personal touch points where, again, like you kind of know what people are going through. And I also will say one of my favorite personal touch points that actually has nothing to do with um, remembering folks, birthdays, anniversaries. I used to always think it was kind of weird that I would get an automated thing from a nonprofit being like, "It's your birthday. Thank you for being a donor." I'd be like, I don't even know who the person is behind that. And like, if you're going to acknowledge my birthday, at least have it come with truffles or Pinot Noir or something. Like, come on. Um, but I think beyond some of those things, which again, I don't want to dismiss that those might be a cultural practice for you all and you want to do that in your organization, really think about people's like lived experiences. So I love personal touch points where it's sort of like, hey, we wanted to reach out to you because we know what pregnancy is like. We have 10 mamas that just went through our program, and we wanted to share with you the impact we're having on other moms because we know how fresh the, new mom experience was for you, Alyssa. So you kind of honor people's real life experiences and age and stage and what they're going through in a way that feels meaningful. And you're paying attention. So I do follow a lot of our donors like on LinkedIn or as appropriate on Instagram, as we build a rapport, because it's good for me to see like, oh my gosh, like they were just hiking in the Grand Canyon and so were 4 of our other donors. Like, next time I see them, I'll mention that, because they all care about environmental issues. And did you all know you were like in the same area? And so there are things, I think, ways you can socially kind of connect people and think of touch points that are personal without being static. The next is community engagement. So I'll share some examples of that on the next page. But we need to get rid of and continue to dispel. And if you've ever attended another webinar with me, I'm a big fan of getting rid of this, the competition in our sector. It's just silly. Like we're not competing to sell vacuums. Like we're all trying to create a better world together. We have to work together, to make those things happen. So community engagement's really important through the standpoint of go and participate in other things in the community that you all share values around. Go do them with your donors. I just reached out to a donor of one of our clients, inviting them to attend another webinar with me that's about, again, a research report that's coming out soon. That's the real donor organizing piece in stewardship work you can do well. If you identify, a group of your donors are really concerned about the mental well-being of LGBTQ youth right now. Maybe you say, hey, like, I know you all are involved in this community and we care about it too. Let's go all march in the Pride Parade together this June, and make t-shirts together. Finding ways to steward and bring donors into other community activities is also part of stewardship. You're showing them how deeply in alignment you all are with your values. And, hopefully these are activities you're already doing. I'm just suggesting curating and bringing along your donors, not putting them on a very technical siloed track that only has to do with your organization, but really bringing them into the movement and the ecosystem. And I remember when I was an early fundraiser, one of my mentors said, always make them feel part of something bigger. So for me, this is a way you can do that in stewardship. Bring them into the vastness and hugeness of what it is to change the world in community with other organizations, business leaders, families, whatnot. The last thing, I'll share another, again, tangible example for those of you who that's helpful for on the next slide, is real clear communication on impact. So what I often find is, and again, I want to honor that you don't have time to personalize 500 reports with handwritten notes, so you'll have to be mindful of how you do it or you share the workload. But I've often gotten impact reports where, an organization has 4 or 5 initiatives. I really got involved, just to go with the analogy I've started today. I've really gotten involved with it just because of their maternal health work. I love when someone writes on the little thing and says, "Hey, Alyssa, I know you care most about the birth center and the work we're doing in the maternal health space. Check this out here. And if you scan the QR code, you can read more of the stories of mamas and babies and families on our website." So again, really finding ways to personalize those communications and tailoring them to what the individual truly cares about. One of our clients that's in the environmental space made an insert last year that they put into about half of the brochures on a specific initiative, and they personalized it because they knew about half of the donors were really interested in that specific initiative's outcomes. And, it was an extra 8.5 by 11 they printed and threw in there, and a couple extra hours of putting the notes on it, but they got such a great response. Because folks said, like, thanks for taking the time to update us on that specific project you were doing instead of staying kind of high level, around what it is as a category. So all of this too, you'll read this quote here at the bottom, is part of creating a culture of philanthropy. So again, thinking about how this can create stronger mission alignment and integration into everything you do when you're this intentional. It can also help you have stronger relationships with donors. I feel like a couple organizations over the last few years I've gotten so much closer to because they're in a conversation with me and not just shouting at me what they're doing and what they need. So I love that. And I also think the other part of a culture of philanthropy that's important is shared responsibility for development. So you're probably looking at this and saying, oh my gosh, Alyssa, you're going to make me go from working my 45 hours a week to working 60 if I have to do this. You have to share the burden and the load of how much extra labor this can be. And on the flip side of that, as we'll talk in a moment, you also have to start using AI because it has to be a tool. It has to help you move more quickly. I sat down with someone the other day who was still literally staring at the screen for the same 30 minutes to draft an email that they could have just used something automated to say that was basically like, great to see you yesterday. Here's a follow up of the 3 things I wanted to get to you. See you next week, right? She was like putting this to, thoughtful email together. She could have gotten a baseline for that with AI in 30 seconds and then refined it a little bit for another minute or two. So I just name that because I think it's really important that you start to streamline, but you also realize where you want to spend more of your actual physical time, and you can get folks to help you do that. So what does that look like exactly? I just talked a little bit about going beyond the thank you card. If folks after today want to email me other ideas on creative ways that I've done appreciation and gratitude, I probably could talk to you for, 24-hour marathon on Zoom about all the appreciation tactics I've used over my career. I guess the main thing I'll say is especially this year, just again with the amount of noise in our socio-political landscape and what people are absorbing and what they can pay attention to. Be thoughtful and also be funny. Like I really love, we had an animal shelter recently that sent out cards with a picture on the front that was really funny of one of their volunteers, I guess, had to take a bunch of rescue animals into their home when there was a broken pipe in the animal rescue. And so they had a picture of her holding all of the cats on the front with this crazy look on her face because she was bringing them all home. And that card came in the mail, and it wasn't just a logo. It was like the cutest, funniest thing. And then inside said, "Thank you for helping volunteers like Sue. Still do it every day." And I just felt like that was so creative and funny. Like, don't be afraid to have a personality in this era and to genuinely be who you are. It makes you stand out from the crowd. Um, Remember donors' values and connect them to benchmarks within your issue area. So again, if you have a donor who's really concerned about affordable housing right now and how, maybe single mothers are finding housing right now in the community, don't be afraid to go to other events that support women or support single parents, or don't be afraid to go to other events that support workforce housing or go to a real estate event or convening with them. One of the things I've been doing a lot with clients who are really interested in building community infrastructure for new healthcare, opening community clinics, opening birth centers, opening up wellness centers, is going to different real estate meetings with them and learning more about the real estate market. So finding ways to connect around issue and geography, they don't always have to be coming to your events. Turns out probably they don't really want to keep coming to a lot of fundraising type events, but you can find things to go to with them, and that's a great thing to do in stewardship. It shows that you're really invested in your own education and learning and knowledge to further the work. And this does kind of bleed into the next one, participate in other community events that matter to your donors. I have I'm not saying go sit at all the other gala tables with the donor and talk about your cause. Be tactful and mindful if you show up at those spaces that you're not like, oh, hey, let me tell you about the food pantry I work at while you're at another organization's fundraising event. Like, definitely be respectful in that space, but don't be afraid. A great example I shared earlier that I love is we have a lot of clients who care deeply about the LGBTQ community and their rights. And so they march in the Pride Parade, whether they're the animal shelter or the scholarship program in town. So you can go participate in those other community events and really show up. There's another client who in their town, they have like a day where everyone sort of cleans the waterfront. Well, the private school through all the way to like the local community loan fund, they go out because they also care about mitigating climate change and taking care of the environment. So just think of other community events and don't be afraid to reach out to a couple of your current donors and say, hey, we're all making a team to run in the road race to end domestic violence, and we didn't know if maybe you want to be on our team too. That kind of collaborative participation, I think it enhances your partnerships on the programmatic side and your relationship with the community in many ways, as well as is an opportunity for you to hang out with your donors, which again, we raise more money when we spend time with donors. Um, and then the last one is just again personalizing all the communications and just make sure it correlates directly to how and why your donors give. So again, I will very often find that organizations don't truly know why someone gives to their organization. So we're working with an organization right now that a lot of their donors have visited the specific geography in Latin America, or they are from that area. They're an immigrant from that area. And so I think it's really important to know kind of the difference across that, not just say, oh, people all care about, all care about this particular country. Well, yeah, but for different reasons. It isn't, so again, getting more granular, knowing why people give to an area or why people give to an issue is really important because you could even do a simple postcard mailing once a year to a bunch of people that trend a certain way. And again, it speaks directly to like, wow, like, that's pretty incredible that, they're doing that work and they paid attention to this thing that I said, a couple of months earlier, either in a survey or over a cup of coffee. So important things to do. You're also probably hearing me say in stewardship, um, I'm talking a lot about how important it is for you to know your donors. So I'm just naming that. If today you're saying, like, oh, I actually don't really know that, don't be afraid early in this year in Q1, part of your stewardship strategy, to be disseminating a survey. or hosting a focus group. We were with a client up in Bethel, Maine 2 days ago, hosting a focus group to get community feedback to shape our stewardship strategies. So you might need to take a step back and get the good box of crullers from the place in town and a couple things of coffee and have people come and give you some feedback to do this in a really thoughtful way, and meet people where they're at. So, examples of stewardship, two organizations that I love dearly, Birth Detroit and Gather New Hampshire. So, I'll share from Gather's impact report. We personalized, we had a lot of donors that obviously care about food insecurity. This is a food systems model, food justice model, rooted in the Seacoast area here in New England. But while people care about food security, it's nuanced. How people show up, why they give to it, how they see it as part of, again, different ecosystems. And there was a pocket of donors that were really interested in their work around saving food and not wasting food. And so we personalized a lot of the impact reports around this red square you'll see here, just leaving notes and adding some additional data points around just how much food we kept out of landfills and how efficient the organization was, through their specific program, Seacoast Waste Not. So that particular personalization and knowing that people care about that environmental component of the larger food systems conversation are ways you can segment and do great stewardship. The other one is, and this is why I love Birth Detroit, is they are a very socially engaged, highly relational organization that loves what they do and loves telling people about Birth Detroit. And so they actually have a line of t-shirts that they've customized to all the universities in the surrounding area, in the surrounding Detroit, Michigan area, all the U of M, all the different sports teams in their colors. So folks can actually get a t-shirt for the birth center and wear it to go to the local sports events for the Detroit Tigers and all the other teams. So I just name that because that's a stewardship strategy where if you're not going to talk to your donors, over the summer because they're away, but you know that they, love the baseball team, you could brand a bunch of your t-shirts in the, Red Sox, colors or whatever. And you could, disseminate it, or a local university or something. This is their Go Blue University of Michigan t-shirt. That and the hoodies sell out really well every year. And they use it to send to donors and say, hey, we miss you. Can't wait to see you in the fall. Here's a t-shirt and go blue. So don't be afraid of trying things like that too. I love creative things like that that remind us that we're all human and we love sports and food and all the things. So AI. So I'm going to open it up, Ashley, probably in about maybe 5 or 7 minutes to some questions. So I want to welcome folks to pepper into the chat any questions that you have of me today, or thoughts that you want to share. Um, but I also love this quote. The true measure of AI is not how intelligent it becomes, but how wisely we choose to use it. And so again, I think it's very personal to each of us how we will utilize it. We all learn and work and play and communicate and all of that very differently. So you will have a relationship to these technologies to do your work well. And then the organization also too might adopt some of those practices more broadly. So again, it might become policy that everyone uses it to draft emails when they're communicating with donors or influencers or certain stakeholders. But there also might be, again, really more intimate ways that you find to utilize it if you're putting together impact reports, or you want to find research to do that really good cultivation of a donor and to talk more with them about how you're part of a national movement, but you're rooted in Detroit, specifically working in the Michigan landscape. So I think as I sort of move through, and also I will honor that I am a fundraiser, fundraising real time and working across, I think we have about 15 or 17 projects at our agency right now. So everybody's got a different, I don't know, cocktail of technologies that I'm learning how to use. Each day my brain is like in three new techs. And I'm like, oh, that's how they can do it in there with that AI. So I'm constantly learning, and exposed to a lot. But I think the biggest thing is AI can help you identify insufficiencies. So it's important for you to utilize the tool. Like, again, you might put together a survey and want to run it through AI to say, are there any questions I'm missing here if I want to do effective donor stewardship? Or things like that. Like you can ask questions and utilize it to find and have it kind of be a curiosity partner with you to enhance some of those tools that I mentioned today. It can also help you identify trends amongst your donors. So again, you might upload the profile of like 4 or 5 different donors, say, We've got a lot of we've got a lot of lawyers, female lawyers that give to us. We have a lot of couples that, grew up in the town that give to us. And then we also have a lot of healthcare professionals who have worked in our field. You can upload those profiles and say, identify some events that all of these types of personas might want to participate in. You can find ways as you sort of get to know your donor base and you create personas, you find through lines and motivations to identify trends and use it for stewardship. So you don't have to do all the thinking. You can really utilize Perplexity AI has been my buddy for sure in saying like, hey, donors asked me these 3 questions in the last week. What's 2 or 3 research reports I could send to all 3 of them that would effectively answer what they asked me? Brilliant. It gives me some examples. I pick one. The other 2, I'm like, that's silly AI. Why are you sending me that? You don't know what you're doing. But one time you were brilliant. And then I take that brilliant one and I personalize it and I send it along to those same 3 donors and say, oh, this research came out of Yale on youth mental health. And I thought these 2 paragraphs would be meaningful for you to read based on what we chatted about last week. So again, it can help you with those trends and efficiencies, segmenting donors, and help you just implement a little more quickly. I also find a lot of folks within organizations will sometimes wait a really long time to meet with the ED or the CEO or the head of research or the head of programming to answer a question. While that's important for internal stuff, if you have a question about the field, you might be able to use AI or you might be able to identify some other research journals that could help you further your knowledge as well, instead of, waiting a week or 2 until the program officer's back from working in country to share something with you. So again, it can just help speed up the process so you can keep a relationship taut. And then the last thing I'll just say here is please just always double check, double check, double check, double check. Even with drafting emails and things like that, like, I've had AI before, one different letter sort of draft something saying to someone that I really enjoyed meeting them for dessert, and it says desert instead and talks about how we hung out at a sand dune. And I'm like, oh gosh, no, like I forgot the wrong S, and now we're in Egypt instead of where we were at that cute Parisian cafe having a latte. So just be really mindful of it. Double check it, triple check it. I don't want you to be in a position where, you're drafting something and follow up to someone who doesn't come across the right way. So all of these I kind of just named here. I'll just lean in for a second, maybe first time donor interactions. I think it's great to automate whatever you can. And I know, again, the Bonterra family of technologies has this capacity for you to do things around first time donor interactions. You can use AI to set up a quick communications trajectory that could bring people into that cultivation process before you reach out again if you need a couple weeks to wait. So there are ways you can set up like Alyssa gives her first $50 gift, I can get some automated communications to take me into, a quick video from the CEO, reading a research report about something, and then getting a calendar link for the director of development to book a time to connect. So you can really think about it around first time donor interactions for sure. And the example I wanted to share with you today, because I love this example, is how you can use it for your major gifts pipeline. So I'm going to come back right now to this generational wealth transfer, which is profound and surprises me every day. I cannot tell you how quickly and awkwardly and oddly money moves in the world, but it for sure does. And so I just name that because this is a great example of there are a lot of people I think who were upper middle class or high net worth prior to the pandemic that are now high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals. I know it sounds maybe crazy for all of us on the call who do not come from wealth or steward wealth, but there are folks who I think are so surprised by the amount of wealth that they have accrued over the last 5 to 7 years. And because of the market, because of generational wealth transfer, inheritances, whatever it might be. So I name that because um, there are a lot of folks that I never would have thought would have been big donors that are hiding in your donor base if you haven't done a wealth screen before, which again, I know Bonterra can help you with looking into and moving forward with. Um, but there's also a lot of folks that with some just very subtle, again, sort of intention around stewardship, I think can be upgraded so that when they do all of a sudden have an inheritance, when they do sell the family home and have the cash in the bank, when they do have something happen in their life where all of a sudden there's a windfall of a couple $100,000, or again, I mentioned the IRA distributions, the life insurance policies. You just don't know. Or also they bump into somebody. I literally was in the grocery store a couple of months back and had a friend that I saw there in the grocery store say, "Oh, hey, by the way, like I was talking to so and so the other day, and her husband's company's going public and he's retiring at 47." And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Do they want to know about all the things I'm fundraising around? They should come over for a crock pot of chili next Friday. So I name it because money moves in weird ways, and you will get knowledge anecdotally, where again, you can show up and kind of, lovingly insert yourself into a conversation about stewarding it towards the community that you care about and you support. So here's a quick example before we turn to Q&A, of just what I've seen around a project. This summer, there was a donor who did a $500 annual gift every year. Same time, same campaign. I think was 3 or 5 years consistent in giving. We did a wealth screen and we said, oh my gosh, like this is nowhere near what this individual could be giving to the organization. Um, so we sent the regular thank you out. We also, in the thank you, did a really cool thing where we did the cumulative giving of that individual. So we put in it like, hey, Jack, we don't know if you know this, but since you began giving to us, you've given to, $2,500, and it's allowed us to do X. And I think he started also giving in the pandemic. So we sort of made a joke reference to the pandemic year and said, thank you for choosing during a crazy year to step in and become a donor. We said, we'd love you to come in and tour the facility. So he actually responded, came in, I think with his son at the time or daughter, did a tour of the facility. And what was discovered in that meeting was a real deep care for environmental issues connected to the facility's use and the programs, and wanting to help with some of the maybe ways that the organization could mitigate climate change or be more effective on being environmental stewards. So we connected them into the programs. We talked more about that element of our work. We had them actually meet the vendors that were installing solar panels on the roof, and they came that day, and with some other donors and folks, and we had wine and cheese in the space while they got to socialize with those folks. And then after that, we wrote and said, hey, our impact report comes out next month, and we'll highlight some of this in there for you as well. Would love to get together after that moment for you to touch base with us. So after that impact report went out, we just, had an email conversation or whatever, but back and forth. And they said, it's been so great to get to know more about what you're doing this year. And the result was a $50,000 check after someone gave $500 every year to the annual fund. It was a deeper, more capital type gift. So just name that because this whole trajectory took about 6 months. But I hope what you can see in it is the handful of, and I don't want to say that again, I want to honor everyone's capacity, but I also want to say that when you're efficient and you do a good job at tracking and managing this as a project, stewardship can be 20 minutes here, an hour there, 15 minutes here, and then you integrate AI to send out all those little automated emails with a couple of emojis and a quick video. So it can really help you with your digital communications so you can be present and in person to, again, have those great conversations and create those meaningful experiences that are not sitting in front of your email for, 5, 10, 15 extra hours that we don't have every week. So I share that with you all today, and I hope it's helpful. Happy to answer some questions from you all. Happy to stay in touch. This is my quote, I guess, for today, because I just want to honor that we need to stay the course. Even if you're not hearing from donors right now because it's an uncertain time, keep that steady hand on stewardship. Don't fall out of doing all those small touch points that we talked about. I think they're very important. It's also Wright Collective's 10-year anniversary this year, so I'm really proud to have been a steward of this agency for a decade. We have a 3-hour workshop with a break coming up on April 8th. So if you want to sign up for that, it's how to close your first $1 million gift. I will be diving more into elements of what we talked about today, and I'm just really excited about that. So if you want to be a part of that, you can definitely sign up and join us or learn more on the website. So with that, Ashley, I will share to you for 8 minutes of Q&A. Do we have some questions in the chat?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. Alyssa, I just dropped the link to your website for folks to check out your upcoming events as well as that 3 hour workshop. So, folks, feel free to check that out. And I also wanted to plug our upcoming virtual conference on March 12th. You all may have gotten some invitations from us so far, but on March 12th, we are hosting AI Built for Good, which we'll talk more about AI that is, of course, built for good and talk about the human led and ethical
Yeah.
part to AI. And you'll hear from nonprofits just like yours about their experience using AI, how they mitigated some of those concerns, and how they kind of got their team on board who might have been hesitant, and what efficiencies they've seen since implementing AI. So, wanted to just plug that here. And I'm going to also drop the link for that as well. But before we go ahead and transition into Q&A, I did want to launch one quick poll here. If you are looking for tools to help you kind of better manage and track your donors, especially tools that do have some AI features, I just went ahead and pulled up another poll here. Like I said, feel free to fill that out. And then once we wrap up today in the next couple minutes here, we'll have one of our colleagues reach out to you and answer some of those questions and initiate some of those conversations. So I'm going to leave that on the screen here for a couple moments here, and we'll get started into Q&A. So we've got a couple of good questions here, Alyssa, throughout the chat and the Q&A here. So I will get started with the first one. This one comes from Emily. Emily said, my organization receives a lot of our funding from entities like corporations or foundations rather than individual donors. Of
Mhm.
course, there are still people behind on giving, but their individual interests aren't necessarily the driving force behind their organization's giving. Do you have different strategies that would be easy to keep that in mind when you're talking about those kind of relationships where I guess they're not really relying on those donors, but obviously still want to steward them, still want to keep them? Do you have any insight on how they can best manage those kind of relationships with those donors?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think it's really difficult because every corporation or foundation is so different, right? Who the decision makers are. Some corporations, it's like this is just what the CEO and the vice president care about. So the philanthropy is focused on this. Others have huge committees that will, work with employee bases to have them vote on the grantees every year. So without knowing the particulars of who makes the decisions behind the entities that support you, I will just say that entities, as you stated, are made up of people. So I think that one of the first things I usually do with corporations in particular is identify affinity groups. So again, as someone who raises money for a lot of causes that support uh, families and children, I'll sometimes look for a parent affinity group within, HubSpot or Google or whatever it might be, and say, hey, can we present to them since we're a grantee? Could we come to a lunch and learn? I think the important thing to break into individuals within corporations, one, there's always volunteer opportunities. So what I mentioned earlier, like having ways that people can go be hands-on with you or be digital warriors on your behalf, that's really important. But I think the other thing with corporations is also just to keep in mind that those individuals might also take a certain interest if the company or the business's goals are aligned with some of what you do. Maybe they want to also there's a reciprocal share there as well. So I've seen like companies, someone's leading the charge, not to go back to the environmental piece a lot, but someone's leading the charge to go green within the company, maybe identifying who that person is within the company and saying, hey, we can be a resource to you if you want to learn how to go green and become more sustainable within the workplace, within your physical building, or within your organization. So I think just making sure there's reciprocity in that relationship and tapping into those individuals is helpful. Foundations, I would say the best thing with foundations, because they don't have large staffs, but to try to get at more individuals, is to also network amongst the other grantees. So being able to maybe do a collaborative, say two of you are supported by the Smith Family Foundation and you're both focused on housing. Don't they see yourself as competitive? Reach out to the workforce housing program and say, we do affordable housing. Can we talk about the importance of housing overall together? And maybe, design a road race, host a dinner, do a backyard barbecue, whatever event might be, a night at the brewery. So I think collaborative fundraisers and asking foundations to introduce you to other like-minded or values-aligned grantees, that can help you cross-pollinate those networks, and all your donors get to kind of know each other and mix and mingle, and you can grow your donor base with the right people. So I'll pause there, but I hope that's helpful to you, um, Emily Wood.
Yes. I love that, Alyssa, and I love what you had to say about kind of trying to connect with other grantees and not really seeing them as competition, but seeing them as somebody that can help you can amplify their organization, they can help amplify yours. So I love that advice.
Love it.
We did have a question from Renee earlier. Renee asked, "How do you do a wealth screen?" I know that you'd mentioned wealth
Oh,
screening. Do you mind going into a little bit of detail on how organizations can do that?
yeah. Ashley, remind me, are there wealth screening technologies that exist within the Bonterra family? Or is that
Um,
something
I
that integrate and add on? I think
I
that's something.
believe it's something, yes, I believe it's something that we do have, but
Yeah.
might have to double check on that for folks on the line
Yeah.
within some of our tools here. But I believe we have it in our every action capability. I'd have to double check about Network for Good, but don't
Yeah.
quote me
So
on that, folks.
no, no worries. Good follow-up. Keep the conversation. So a lot of technologies you can integrate a wealth screening technology, or it's something you can add on. Um, what I have used for the last couple of years, I love one company is Windfall. I've been working with Windfall with two client projects over the last few years, and I love the work that they do. They can do a wealth screen for you. Certain size donor bases have a certain cost. But what you get from it is you get 3 years of someone's sort of net worth data and their giving history, and it's organized in a really yummy, beautiful way for you based on criteria that you set to support your fundraising strategy. Um, and then the other one that I like is iWave. So iWave technology is great. That's what we use at Wright Collective. It's a lot of data. So I will just say that sometimes smaller development shops, they actually like will hire and work with us because we do the massive iWave screen and then we segment and distill it down. But I love iWave, particularly if you're thinking about a capital campaign or an anniversary campaign, like a larger raise in the next couple of years. I would totally invest in that technology. And I would also say, the trend is also, and Emily, this goes to your question a little bit, like the trend is that more, and it has been this for a long time, but even more so now, more is raised from individuals and family offices than corporations and foundations. So, what I want to remind you is there's so much wealth out there in certain families in this country and in certain individuals' capacity to give. And it's a faster, more unrestricted check. I would say maybe even canceling like a technology for 6 months that you pay for to search for grants. If you're feeling your grants program is pretty stable, cancel that and put the money into doing a wealth screen right now on your donor base. And yeah, be in touch with myself or Bonterra about those potential integrations because I think it's really just an important time to super sleuth and find out who has the capacity and propensity to give to you.
Yes, wonderful. And I think somebody in the chat is looking for the name of the first one, and it was Windfall, correct? Is what you
Yeah,
mentioned, Alyssa?
Windfall and iWave.
And iWave. Perfect.
Yeah,
And
you
then
bet.
I know we have just 1 minute here, so maybe one last quick question that we have time to answer,
Sure.
which would be, do you have any advice on stewarding some of your mail-in, I believe like physical mail-in donors is what Christina
Mm,
might be asking, if I understand her question correctly. Yeah, do you have any advice on mail-in donors and how you steward those?
yeah, I mean, I think again, this is where I go back. My undergrad's in theater and I'm an artist before anything else. So I always go back to like doing things that are out of the box and creative that people don't expect. So this is where like if you have a mailing pipeline and you're trying to figure out the stewardship strategy, maybe you throw in there a couple of non-traditional mailer type things that they wouldn't expect. Maybe you do a recipe card from a young person who just graduated from your culinary workforce program and the front of it just says like, you look like you could use a crock pot meal to make your days easier. Flip it around, there's the crock pot recipe. I think we used to do this thing at this organization that did art with youth where we'd literally drive around the neighborhood and we'd put art rocks. We'd have the kids paint art rocks on rocks, and we'd go and leave them on the doorsteps of businesses or homes that, we'd put it on people's steps and say, a little postcard, you're awesome, and put a rock on it and say, enjoy your rock, you rock. So think about things like that. Like stewardship from a mailing pipeline could be, again, some other touch points around that make them feel surprised when they get it in the mailbox, but also make them want to engage. So I get a lot of mailers where I'm like, okay, send me a thank you postcard once a year, but the next thing, invite me to do something. Scan this QR code and add your name to this policy thing, or, scan this QR code and, help us buy diapers for a family right now for $20. Like, give me an action item, right? So I think that's really important. Stewardship from a mailing pipeline, I think, is diversifying the types of mail, but then also really thinking about how do we get these people like in community with us, and doing things and again in conversation, activated on our behalf. Hope that's helpful,
Awesome.
Christina. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I love the idea of unique mail. And I would definitely like to receive a crock pot recipe. I would really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know we are a little bit after time. So folks, thank you for staying with us here for an extra minute. But we really appreciate you spending the hour with us. Thank you all for the engagement in the chat and the Q&A. And apologies if we didn't get to your question. There was quite a bit, but we appreciate your time. And I see a lot of thanks rolling in the chat. So Alyssa, again, thank you. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Thank you for the wealth of knowledge you always bring to our audience here. And again, folks, we will be sending out the recording of this webinar in the next couple of weeks here. So or next couple of days, be on the lookout for that. Awesome. Well, with that, everyone, hope you have a great rest of your morning or your afternoon. And we look forward to seeing you at our next session, which is our virtual conference. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. Bye, everyone.